Do you trust me? Do you think you can trust me? Hello and welcome. My name is Eveline van Zeeland and I'm studying trust from a design perspective. These past seconds, you've evaluated whether or not I'm worth your trust. I hope I am. And this process of trust evaluation goes really quick and unconsciously. Researchers from the University of Princeton have found out that it takes you only 100 milliseconds to evaluate whether or not you can trust somebody. And in this quick process of trust evaluation, you use all kinds of trust signals. For example, you've looked at my smile, at the attractiveness of my face, at my body language, and you've used these trust signals as ingredients to evaluate whether or not I'm worth your trust. And these trust signals are important, just as trust is important. Can you imagine having a good relationship without trust? And can you imagine that people would invest in a startup or in an innovative product without trust? So trust is crucial for building relationships and for economic growth. And also for sectors as education and health. How would they be without trust? Well, trust is like the glue of society. It's what connects us. It gives room for intimacy. And specifically in this era of social distancing, trust is the one factor that keeps us together. Well, if trust is so important, can we then stimulate trust? Yes, we can. For example, some researchers have injected some oxytocin, which is a neuropeptide, by a nose spray into a participant of a trust game. A trust game is a typical scientific way of measuring the level of trust. And they found that people injected with this nose spray full of oxytocin indeed experienced higher levels of trust than people without this oxytocin. And it also works vice versa. Other researchers from the Netherlands have found out that an injection of testosterone, another hormone, can inhibit the level of trust. So hormones can increase or decrease the level of trust. And I find this fascinating, and I was wondering if hormones can stimulate trust. Can trust also be stimulated by design? And this was a question on which I was working on. Can we design for trust? And if we can design for trust, we need certain design principles of trust. So I went searching in academic literature to find these design principles. And I found that there were several dimensions of trust. For example, in the marketing literature, we see Donnie and Cannon say trust is at one side credibility and at the other side benevolence. And if we look at the management literature, we see Covey saying, well, trust is at one side competence and at the other side character. And in the psychological literature, we see Susan Fiske say, well, trust is at one side competence and at one side warmth. Well, whether you look at the marketing perspective or at the management perspective or at a psychological perspective, well, the words differ a little bit, but in general, we see that trust is a two-dimensional concept. Something about capability on one side and intentions on the other. Well, if we have these two dimensions of trust, we can use these two dimensions as design principles. And that's what we did in our research. We were programming a robot, not a physical robot as in this figure, but an invisible robot called a chatbot with which you can have a conversation. And this conversation is always designed. So if it is designed, you can use design principles to alter the design. And that's what we did. So we've designed a warm chatbot using a lot of empathic expressions. And we have designed a competent chatbot using a lot of difficult words. And then we let people, in this case fictive patient, because we use this or tested this chatbot in a medical context, we let them have a conversation with this robot or doctor chatbot. And we found out that the design of the conversation indeed had an impact on the level of trust that the fictive patient experienced with this chatbot. So yes, we can stimulate trust by conversation design. But, well, this research was done in an e-health context, and then of course you can ask yourself the question, is this what we really want? Do we want robot doctors? And do we want to program them in such a way that the patient feel more trust? Is this right or isn't this right? Well, we see that these moral dilemmas are a big part of society now, because technology is important in our society. And lots of technologies are designed with the right intentions, but now raise questions whether or not we are in a culture of manipulation. For example, this documentary, The Social Dilemma, which is now on Netflix, really shows the good intent of technology in the beginning and the culture of manipulation in which it has evolved. And in general, we see a lot of fear for technology and robots in society, because we feel they're taking over our lives. We feel controlled. So, when designing for trust by the use of technology, we have to ask ourselves several moral questions. And together with my research buddy Bart Wernard, we've thought about these questions. And I think the first question you should ask yourself is, why are we even designing for trust? For example, by using a chatbot. What's its impact on society? And if there is a big impact, who's responsible for that? Is it the one designing the chatbot? Is it the organization using the chatbot as an interface? Who is responsible? And when looking a little bit at the beginning of the design process, how is that design process organized? And are potential users involved in the design process? Which you want if it has an impact on society. And if you have an answer to all these questions, of course, the answer to these questions should go to the programmer of this technology, so he does the right things. Well, thinking about moral questions when doing this type of research appears natural and good. But in general, in the design world, those questions are not always asked. For example, if we look at the design of the tangible, such as art or architecture or fashion or a product like a car, we in general believe that beauty contributes to our society. We even teach art at our children at school. And we in general think that, for example, the Mona Lisa, but also the Opera House in Sydney, contribute to the beauty of our society. We don't feel that Mona Lisa or the Opera House or this Ferrari is manipulating us. But when we talk about the design of the intangible, such as emotions or trust in this case, then there's a question mark whether or not we want this and whether or not we feel manipulated. And I'm wondering, why is there a difference? Why do we consider the design of the tangible as less manipulative than the design of the intangible, such as emotions or trust? Well, unfortunately, this is not a question that I can answer right now. So I leave you to it with this question and let you think about it for a little while. How do you feel manipulated by design? And how do you consider the design for trust? I hope you found this Dutch Design Week talk inspiring and that you enjoyed it. And I wish you a great time at the virtual Dutch Design Week. Bye.